This week is CSA Week, the busiest time of year to sign up for a CSA, or Community-Supported Agriculture Share. A CSA share is like a subscription box to the freshest, most flavorful food your local farm has to offer. When you join a CSA, you invest in the farm at the start of the season, and in return, receive a share of the harvest throughout the growing season. Find your farm today using FairShare's interactive farm search map at csacoalition.org/farm-search. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, it's the Friday News Roundup, and this week was an election week. Plus, there are real discussions going on in our city about street safety after the recent tragedy on South Park. Other stories to get into. We're going to jump right in. Joining me today is our executive producer, Haley Sperling. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Bianca?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for holding down the fort while I was away. I did get some sunshine, and that was much needed, and salt water. So, in the Gulf of Mexico.
I love it. I wish we had a fort. I think that would be cool. Yeah.
Rob, you're starting us off this week with the election news. What happened?
Tuesday was election day. I swear there was an election on Tuesday. It was a little lower profile than some of the other ones we talk about here on the podcast, but Tuesday was spring primary election day ahead of the spring general election on April 7th. Some Wisconsin communities did not even have an election because there were no contested races. So we were lucky to have a few. It was a relatively small election that narrowed the field for a few races in Dane County. So it was sort of a dry run for voters and election officials for April. Haley, I know you found out you weren't registered to vote, so it was good for you to go, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I walked in and they were like, have you voted here before? And I was like, of course I've voted here before. I've voted here before for years, but I have moved within the past year and within the same ward. So it wasn't very hard. And so I gave them my address and they're like, that's not the address we have on file. And I was like, wow. That's right. And they were like, here you go. You can register because shout out to Wisconsin. We have same day voter registration. So if you hit the polls and realize that you are not registered to vote, don't go away. It was super easy. I literally just pulled up my lease on my phone, filled out a piece of paper. It was confirmed by the election officials and I got my ballot, was on my way. The whole thing probably took an extra 5 minutes. And I was really glad that I did it for that I found out that I wasn't registered in this election. Because like you said, Rob, it's kind of like a sleepy primary, whatever. But I think the April one is going to be heating up. I want to make sure that I'm good to go for that. So check your voter registration, y'all. It's important. It can sneak up on you.
That's right. This was also the first election administered by Madison's new city clerk, Lydia McComas. She started last summer following, we talked about this a lot, this notorious error in the November 2024 election in which nearly 200 absentee ballots went uncounted. That has led to state officials yelling at us. That has led to legal action and the departure of the city's longtime previous clerk, Maribeth Witzel-Bell. So turnout was low as expected for such a primary race. It's hard to compare different primaries because it depends who's on the ballot. Like when we had a mayoral primary a couple of years ago, there's much more turnout, as you would imagine. But the Dane County clerk said that over 50,000 people cast ballots out of 391,000 registered voters. And that's about a 13% turnout rate. So
that feels pretty solid for, like I said, a relatively sleepy primary. There was only one thing to vote on in my ballot. So I that feels fine.
Good for you for going in and filling out one bubble.
Yeah.
That's democracy, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, can we just say that, I imagine you guys have had just phenomenal experiences at the polls. Every time I go, just the loveliest people. People are happy to be there and make democracy happen. And I know we had this ugly moment that's under litigation, but I just don't want to everything that the folks do to make our elections happen, each run, go unnoticed. And yeah, so special shout out to that. And we always want more voting. So we'll take the 13%. But come on, y'all. More of y'all can vote too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think, go out there to the polls and keep them company and, make your voice heard. So here are the results. So in these races, it was the top 2 vote getters who move on to the general election in April. In Dane County Circuit Court, Branch 1, Judge Ben Jones, who was appointed by Governor Tony Evers last year, received over half of the ballots cast. And so his challenger in April will be Huma Asan, who is the founder of Madison Immigration Law, and they received 17,000 votes. And then a third candidate, attorney Nathan Wagner, received less than 15%. So that's top 2 of those 3 will move on. If you live in Dane County District 12, you had a race for supervisor. District 12 is in Madison's northeast side. Incumbent Tommy Rylander comfortably won with 600 votes. That was over half of the total votes cast. But it was in the close race for that second spot to move on to the general election between challenger Sean Burke and Otis Harris Jr. And in the end, with all precincts reporting, Burke beat Harris by just 11 votes. So don't let anybody tell you that your vote doesn't count, because that's one of those closies that we love in local politics.
Yes, local elections. I love seeing how close these things get, right? Because when turnout is this low, it comes down to a matter, like literally a handful of votes will change the results. It's huge.
Right. Yeah. And then in District 15, which was another contested Dane County board election, District 15 includes parts of Middleton and Madison's far west side. Amy Larson, a retired Navy captain, received 61% of the vote, while Nino Amato received 33%. And then the third candidate, Rick Cruz, only got less than 6%. And so technically Larson was the incumbent in this race, but like just barely. She was appointed to the board like just a few weeks ago to fill the vacancy. So
wow, that's a vote of confidence to receive such a percentage.
Right. Yeah. So it was a pretty low profile election. And it seems like in those cases, a lot of times the incumbent gets the advantage, which is unfortunately a lot of times the case in our election system. But it sets up all these races on April 7th, where they look to be a lot more exciting. We've got another Wisconsin Supreme Court race. 2 of the seats on the Madison School Board are up. All of the even-numbered Madison City Council seats are up. So if you live in an even-numbered district, you'll have a city council election. If you live in an odd-numbered district, you'll be up next year. And then all of the 37 Dane County board seats are up for election. So stay tuned.
Yeah. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
And I will say the ads for the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, they are happening. Like I've seen them on the Teletube. They're a little less jarring, I'll say, than the previous Supreme Court races. Still some extremists and that thing, but I don't know about y'all. Have you been seeing much on the Wisconsin State Supreme Court? It feels like, is that going to be a little bit more of a snoozer at this point as well?
You know, I actually haven't seen much on the Supreme Court, maybe because I don't watch as much like broadcast television, but where I do consume media is like on Instagram. And I have been getting a lot of ads for this Dane County Circuit Court judge, like, which kind of, right? It kind of surprised me. So I think someone did one big media buy, and it's clearly working out for them, because it's one of those smaller elections where whoever really, I think, makes the right choice at the right time when it comes to that spending money can definitely come out ahead, because that was one thing where I'm like, oh yeah, there is an election coming up for this judge that I don't really know much about. And it did encourage me to learn more. And like I said, go out to vote.
Yeah. Well, folks, stay close to us here at CityCast Madison. We'll be covering it all. And we've got more news to get into. Before we do, let's take a quick break. All right, we are onto our next story, and pretty major news in Madison that we're all grappling with, and just it's an upsetting story. Haley, you've got this one.
Yeah, it is quite upsetting. So once again, this week, I'm bringing a story that has a lot of emotions tied up in it. So Going to take a deep breath and we will dive into this one. The city of Madison and Madison School District are trying to address safety concerns surrounding South Park Street after a student was struck and killed by a car on his way to school. On February 5th, 17-year-old Sasha Rosen was crossing South Park Street on his way to catch a bus to school, something he has done many times before. But on that day, Sasha was hit by a car and killed while crossing the street, despite the fact that crosswalk lights were flashing. Police say speed played a very significant factor in the crash. Multiple news outlets have reported that investigators estimate that the driver of the car, who was 51-year-old Kathleen Borgwart, was going 62 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Borgwart's attorney did push back on that estimate in court, so I'm sure that is something that we'll see play out there. But nonetheless, the outcome is still the same. In a public Facebook post, Sasha's mother, Nadia, described her son as a goofy, music-loving, video game-playing, baggy pants-wearing, espresso-drinking child who could talk about best rap album as well as what was going on in U.S. Congress. So clearly a kid with the range, with a lot of love in his heart. She also said in that post, quote, "Drivers on South Park Street need to pay more attention. We need to watch the crosswalks. We need to stop for pedestrians. We need to stop when the lights flash at the crosswalks. We need to stop if the car in the other lane stops. We need to not drive in the bus or bike lane. We need to drive the speed limit. The speed limit on South Park Street is 25 miles an hour. That can feel slow and it's appropriate." Unquote. So, Rob, I know you wrote about this story for the newsletter and you went to the crash site where there's a memorial that's been set up for Sasha. Can you tell us a little bit about what you saw there?
Yeah, it's very sad. The intersection is near where the St. Vinny's outlet is, if you know where that is. The crosswalk is on a little bit of a rise, like kind of at the top of, I wouldn't even say a hill, but a rise in Park Street. And at the center, when I went over there, sort of the post in the center median was covered with flowers. There were photos of Sasha facing all four directions, and on the ground there were like Monster energy drinks and stuff sort of put there. And yeah, just really sad. I mean, to see his smiling face there, at that spot.
And Bianca, I know you heard about this story too.
Yeah, it just is heartbreaking. Our hearts are broken. It's such a senseless thing to have happen, and seeing the debated speed that the driver was going just felt like, you've got to be kidding me, right? 60? You've got to be kidding me. But we know how people are driving recklessly and putting themselves first, and that is the point of the speed limit. And, we're seeing across the city in neighborhoods, 25s going to 20s, and you're like, oh, why would you do that? And then you see people just so blatantly disconnected. I obviously don't know all of the circumstances, but it's just a real tragedy.
It really is. And I think too, just as a culture, as a society, I think we all kind of take for granted the ease at which we operate these, multi-ton vehicles that can cause so much damage. Car culture is an integral part of everyday life here in Madison and, throughout the US, throughout the world. But it really is a privilege, and it really is one not to be taken lightly, because these vehicles, like I said, are huge and then they can cause harm. And you mentioned speed limits dropping. The city, for its part, is taking part in this Vision Zero initiative, which is the goal to have zero traffic deaths. And we're not there yet, but that is part of why these speed limits are decreasing. But of course, we've seen increased traffic now in the Park Street area because people are using it as a pretty main detour from the John Nolan traffic as well. So I think this is something that people are really paying attention to these days. And of course, it's a really serious incident, and it's bringing about some really serious conversations. Sasha's mom has started a campaign called Safe Streets for Sasha, where she's encouraging people to speak out and write to their local officials to call for more traffic safety action. And like I mentioned, it seems like the city and the school district are listening. According to the Cap Times, the city's traffic engineering department has launched reviews to identify factors in the crash and determine some more longer-term safety measures. And meanwhile, the school district has designated South Park Street as an unusually hazardous transportation location, which is an official designation that essentially entitles students in that area to be bused to school. So now, all students living on the east side of Park Street who attend James C. Wright Middle School will be able to take the bus to school. Unfortunately, that change wouldn't have benefited Sasha since high schoolers ride metro buses to school. But nonetheless, this horrific incident is opening the doors to these conversations that we really desperately need to be having as a city surrounding traffic and surrounding how the city, the county, and school officials can collaborate. Because right now, there's really no means of official communication. You know, the mayor and school district officials, they say that they have open lines of communication for each other, but there's nothing in place that allows them to really take action. There was a city county schools collaborative committee, but the group officially dissolved itself in December after it came to the conclusion that it couldn't actually act on anything. So we've talked about this before. What's the point of a committee if it can't take any action? So it seems like there really is an interest right now in renewing those conversations across the school district, across the city and county to have some sort of formal space for communication and action. But what that looks like and how that would actually function is kind of a mystery right now. So we'll definitely be watching this. I'm really curious to see what comes of it. But of course, right now at this time, Superintendent Joe Gothard said that now is the time to give Sasha's family and the entire West High School community space to mourn and grieve. So our thoughts are certainly with them at this time.
The last note I'll say on that is just folks, slow down and pay attention. It will literally save lives. It's not worth speeding. And we hope to continue this conversation. There's no easy way to leave this, but Haley, thank you for bringing the story. And yeah, we'll keep following it this as well. And we are going to switch gears in our next segment, talk about something new. Before we do that, let's take a quick break. All right, heavy news and elections, and we want to bring something a little bit lighter. And there are some changes to our restaurant scene. As always, it seems like that news is perennial. Long time Madison restaurant that's right off of State Street announced that it will be closing. Portobello Italian restaurant on Francis Street, the one that's got that beautiful Italian courtyard out front and kind of seems like a magical secret garden, and the maximalist Italian artful space inside is closing at the end of this month, February 28th. Oh my gosh, closures of really long-time institutions. They've been around for 58 years. So I want to get into your thoughts about the place, but what's your reaction just to hearing about Portobello's closure?
Well, I always think it's sad when places that are this old and have this much storied presence in our community decide to shut down. But of course, it seems like the owners are kind of going out on their own terms. You know, they're older and they're ready to retire, which is fair. But I agree with you, Bianca, like the outside of Portobello is this like, it's like a little fairy garden over there, you know? I haven't actually eaten there. I haven't actually been inside, but I do appreciate it as a space that looks completely different from anything else that exists in Madison right now. So that will be missed for sure.
And I have eaten there. And I mean, the inside is also very cool in a different way. It feels like like an old school Italian restaurant. You feel like you should be having martinis with Don Draper or something like that and discussing some deal with these upholstered booths and mood lighting. And I'll be candid, there's different opinions out there on the quality of the food at Portobello, but like the experience is really like nothing else in Madison. It really does feel like a trip back in time.
I love that. That was very diplomatic. The food, not sure, but the interior. I mean, yeah, I've had a few experiences eating there. I like going to Portobello because I like feeling like I'm in a movie, and exactly like you described it, Rob, about Don Draper. It's got that feeling like you want a martini. And one of my favorite parts are the red shaded chandeliers over each of the booths.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the booths are so tall, and the upholstery like absorbs all the sound, so I do feel like it's very Godfather. And the bar itself is like Italian Rococo art. I'm so about it. So I will be sad to see them go. The owners, Wally Borowski and Ed Shinnick, who also own Paisans, a place that I know, Haley, you love that for sure, said that they're preparing the building for the sale, and then they're going to embrace retirement. So what's coming next? I read in the State Journal an article by Samara Kalk-Derby that says the building and space is in the process of being sold to Vilas Student Housing of Austin, Texas, which plans to construct a 16-story student apartment building on the site. So that's a site obviously a few blocks away from UW-Madison's campus. I'm sure that's good news for them. And there's more housing. We always need that. So that's the word on Portobello. RIP, man. And I'm just going to say I also miss Tutto Pasta on State Street. Like, there are certain places that you just have memories there. And I'm sure plenty of folks have memories at this spot. And want to shout out our conversation that we did about like our beloved restaurants, pour one out for them, restaurants and bars. We'll throw that in the show notes, or y'all just go look it up. But that is a really fun conversation if you are sad about this closure. That said, with every closure, there seems to be a new opening. And there is a hello to a new brick and mortar spot for Baked Lab. Started by the owner and baker Sean Bolduc in 2019, now they have their own storefront. And it's going to be selling, baked goods, sweet treats, cakes, cookies. There's Scandinavian coffee, espresso, wine. It's probably hip. I'll just say it's hip. And Rob, I heard you dipped into the sneak peek. What was it like?
It's cool. And I wouldn't say it's like hip in the sense of feeling like you don't belong there. It felt like a very approachable space. Like you said, Sean wants it a place where you can stop in and get coffee and a little snacky snack in the afternoon and come back in the evening for a glass of wine and some like fancy plated dessert. I did a short interview with him for the CityCast Madison newsletter about his hopes, but it was cool. I mean, there was lots of people. There's a big long table filled with treats. I can't turn down a little butterscotch pudding, so I got a little cup of that while I was trying to take pictures and move around. It's opening tomorrow, right?
Yes, they are holding their grand opening tomorrow, Saturday, February 21st. I've got that from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. I want to sneak in personally, and I know some baker folks in town. Liz Kirkland shouting her out, former pastry chef at Madison Sourdough, who's been in my ear about Baked Lab, and I cannot wait for that. So, talking about exciting things, there's always things to celebrate in Madison. Haley, we've got a shout out. What do our neighbors have to say?
Yes, it's time for neighbor shout-outs, a special place for our CityCast Madison neighbors to share some love about the things that they hold dear in our sweet city. And like you mentioned, we've got one shout out today. This one is coming from Dan F., who is shouting out Mercado Marimar. He says that Madison has an embarrassment of riches when it comes to Mexican food, and specifically tacos. And that's why Marimar on South Park is so deserving of a shout out. Dan says that their tortillas are incredible. The filling, he usually gets chicken, is moist, flavorful, and delicious. He also says that the salsas and sides are all yummy. And add to that, they have a full menu of other Mexican specialties, and it's inside the incredibly well-stocked Mexican grocer. It's a winner. Go eat tacos, Dan says. He also says that they apparently pulled his Google review and posted it on their website. So we love it. Dan's sharing the love everywhere. And now we're sharing it with you right here on this podcast. So it's really exciting. And, we've also had something kind of exciting come out of our member shout outs recently. Bianca, you've got something to share.
Yeah, this was wild. So somebody heard one of our shout outs from the other day. We shouted out one of their friends, Shauna, who's a local improv artist, and they heard us discussing that I took intro improv in Madison at Atlas Improv last year, and they thought, you know what, we're going to ask Bianca to be the guest of honor for their regular comedy interview show. This is put on by Big Honey, and their show is called Improv Your Prov, and apparently they're basically going to have me on there and interview me about my life for like 10 minutes, and then on the spot come up with a half-hour improv show. I'm scared, I'm excited, I'm thrilled, and it's something I've seen on Hacks, like a guest of honor. Come be a part of our improv troupe for a day. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all like, oh, that sounds like really fun. So definitely want to be part of that. So get your tickets if you want in on the improv show. If you want to see Big Honey and support some local improvers and support us, definitely come through. The date is again Wednesday, March 4th, and that's going to be from 7 to 8 p.m. at Aubergine. And that's on Williamson Street, 1226 Williamson Street. So hopefully see you there. It'll be fun. And if you want to support us more, become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm, become a neighbor, and then you can make your own shout outs and be relevant and be heard by your friends.
I love it. I'm so excited for this. We love when the seats get turned on you, Bianca, and you get to be in the guest seat. And that happened again more recently. We shouted it out last week, but CityCast recently launched a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better, in which hosts and producers from across all 13 CityCast cities talk with our CEO, David Plotz, about what's going on in their city and what we can learn from each other. And it's really cool. The first episode came out last week with the Twin Cities host, Sean McPherson. They're talking about everything that's going on over there. We know we've been following that pretty closely as well. But this week, it's our very own Bianca Martin in, once again, the hot seat with our CEO, David Plotz. So, Bianca, how did that go?
Yeah, truly the hot seat. So I know a good deal of y'all listening listen to our latest all host conversation where we're like, what's one topic that your city and other cities across the U.S. are going to be talking about in 2026? And I picked data centers, and a debate was sparked. We've talked about it a few times. There are like at least 6 other people lighting up and joining the conversation. And we thought this needs to be dug a little deeper. Like there are lots of trade-offs and we barely scratched the surface. So yeah, episode 2 of this new national podcast will be me talking to David about data centers and why folks in Madison and in our county are pushing back. And it got hot. It definitely got spicy. We both took different sides. I'll just say I do like innovation in science, and I want it done ethically. So that's the little teaser there. And I hope that my CEO, my boss's boss's boss, as Sean McPherson said, still likes me after it. But yeah, it's an important key issue of our time, and definitely want y'all to go listen.
Yeah, definitely check that out. It's got its own feed. Like I said, the podcast is called Your City Could Be Better. It drops on Fridays, but it also appears in our own CityCast Madison feed on Sundays. So check that out. If you're missing us over the weekend, log in on Sunday. And this weekend, like I said, you'll hear Bianca and David battle it out over data centers. I'm really excited to listen to this one. I know it's a hot topic in Wisconsin. It's a hot topic across the nation. And Bianca, I mean, you are becoming our resident data center expert. So I'm super stoked to listen.
I'm really excited. I really enjoyed that all hosts episode conversation because it was like you two are from such different perspectives, like Wisconsin and David being in DC, you don't really hear that side of it in Wisconsin because we're so focused on, the natural resources and the local impact. So I'm really interested to hear it for sure. I'm sure you did great, Bianca. I'm sure you did great. Yeah. My money's on you.
Yeah, I'll just also say, quoting Kendrick Lamar, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to push back. So that was a lot of fun. And thank you guys. We're at the end of our Friday News Roundup, and we can let folks get to their weekend a little more informed about the Madison area. Thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. Haley Sperling. See ya later.
See you next time.
And Rob Thomas, thanks so much.
Bye, Bianca.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. We're produced by Jedi Siri Ramos with help this week from Laura Sutsui, Adrian Gonzalez, and Katie McMurrin. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Additional music this week by April Moon, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to our CityCast Madison newsletter. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who wants fair elections, safe streets, and strong local comedy and sweet treats. All right, y'all. See you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city. Until then, thanks for listening and have a great, safe weekend.